you would just see.
It's
Space. We'll get started shortly.
okay. Well, since we're mostly, I'm going to take a few minutes of silence then by myself, since we're not going to do kirtan. So let me just do that while you do whatever you're going to do.
Okay. Chiraka, are you sharing the slide or sending it to me? Okay, great. Okay, so welcome everyone to our October ProutSpace. We're very lucky to have Didi Ananda Uttama here with us today. Didi began her Acharya life in the early 80s, working across Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and Far East Russia before moving to the Mediterranean in the late 1990s. A former home birth midwife, her long life work has remained closely connected to the journey of mothers and children. Since 2015, she has been working with refugee and migrant mothers in Greece, offering support from pregnancy to early childhood. Her current project in Athens focuses on social and economic empowerment among displaced women, helping them gain confidence, independence, and leadership while building thriving, self-sustaining communities. So welcome, Didi. We will have you present first, and the entire event will be an hour and a half, so we'll have time for discussion following. If we end before that, it's not a problem, but we do have all of that time. And Didi, would you like people to be able to ask questions throughout or save questions until the end of your presentation?
I prefer, I think, till the end.
Okay,
Sometimes it
great.
can get a bit distracting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so note your questions down if you have them, and we'll have a Q&A portion at the end. Please note that this is being recorded for our Proudest Universal YouTube channel, so it will be available to share and rewatch after. And without further ado, Didi, I'll pass it to you. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Can you see the PowerPoint okay?
Yes.
Okay. And do you see, it's the whole screen, do you see the participants on the side as we just had, or you just see the PowerPoint, huh?
We see the PowerPoint and you are spotlighted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So, thank you all for coming. Nice to see you all. I'd like to present our project here in Greece, which started out as relief work and has really morphed a bit into more Prout work, from relief to community building. And what we are really doing is empowering displaced women through knowledge, community, and economic independence. I'm going to start by saying what Baba has said about empowering women, that these three factors need to be in place. And one is free education, The second is no discrimination in social, educational, or religious realms. And the third is provision of economic and social security. So these are really the foundational basis for our work. I have to say from the beginning that it's really the Proutist people, Anandi and others, who had said to me in the last years, Didi, this work is more Proutist than you think, because for me it's Amartel. We work under the name Amartel, and it's started as relief work. So what I'm doing really, is seeing it more through the lens of the Prout and sharing with you the evolution of that as it is still ongoing. So before I get into what we do, I want to talk about who we work with. We work with mothers, women who are mothers, and the majority of them are Middle Eastern or African. Now, when we started this work in 2015, from 2015 onwards for the next years, almost until COVID, I could say, the women coming to us, the breakdown was something like you see here in the 2018 chart. 36% of the women Afghanistan, 33 Syrian. So the majority of mothers were Afghans and Syrians, speaking Farsi, the Afghans, speaking Arabic, the Syrians. And then we had different African countries, Nigeria, Eritrea. Oh, there are at least 10 different African countries that have always been represented. Iran and Iraq, also from the Middle East. So the work is done with women who are displaced, women who are new to a European culture, very different from their own cultures, women who primarily, the great majority of whom do not speak English or Greek. They speak Arabic, Farsi, and French. The majority of our African women nowadays speak French. Over a period of time, from COVID, those 2 years of COVID, as it was for everyone, we were online, but things kind of were in a different space. And then after COVID, there was a shift in the demographics of the women who came. And now, as of 2024, the statistics from the end of last year, the majority of our women are Egyptian. We have still a lot of African women from DR Congo, Sierra Leone, and Cameroon. Those are the main countries. And then you can see these other countries, Bangladesh, Iran, Morocco, etc. All of these other countries where the women are from. We have had, when we do the statistics at the end of the year, we have calculated that there are about between 25 and 30 different countries that our women come from. So that creates certain logistical issues that we have to deal with, primarily language and different cultural preferences, but I'll talk a bit more about that later. So we have a wide range of women from different places. And this is something else that I want to say in the beginning about our women. There is an institute called the Georgetown Institute for Women's Peace and Security in the US, and they do periodic indexes of the social inclusion of women in society, the security of women in society, the justice that women are able to access in the judicial systems, or the social justice that women live under. And of 177 countries, the women from the countries that we work with come from the lower third. And that is really significant. That's why I say it in the beginning. It's significant because the majority of these women have been raised to be mothers as their primary personal and social identity. And being a mother is therefore something very, very important. For some women who cannot get pregnant or cannot be mothers, I have seen they undergo tremendous trauma because that is their social and personal value. But it also means that, and they're wonderful mothers, I should say. they're wonderful mothers. Their lives are committed to it. But on the other hand, it's very limiting. In the countries that are lowest on this index, really we have mothers who have been housebound, who do not leave their homes without the permission of their husband or without their male guardians or male anyone with them. And so these women are, many times they're largely invisible, and they're raised to be that, and that's the model of womanhood that they know is a invisibility in the social fabric. And so I'm going to talk about that a bit more later. But just keep that in mind, that all of the inequalities that we know exist in all of our countries, the gender inequalities are just far, far greater and far more ingrained in the women, in most of the women who come to us, than they are for any of us in our countries working for a greater gender balance. So again, before I get into talking about what we do, I want to introduce you to a few of the mothers, a little bit of their backgrounds. This is Agnes. She's from the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is not her picture. Most all of the pictures in this presentation are not pictures of the women themselves. That's for the sake of respecting their privacy. The women, most of the women, and particularly the Arabic speakers or Farsi Middle Eastern women, do not give permission for their pictures to be used unless it was a private show. If I was speaking to you physically, personally, and it was not being recorded, I could use their pictures. But since this will be online, then we cannot. And some of them it's for the purpose of safety, and others it's just from modesty. Some of our Middle Eastern mothers, many of them have Facebook pages that they'll show us, but their pictures are never on the Facebook page. There'll be the pictures of their husband, the pictures of their children, but not their pictures. So for them to be forthright in the public this way is just not acceptable. So this is not Agnes, but this represents Agnes, who was from the DR Congo, as it says here. She was brought up in a very poor family. Her family sold her at a young age to a rich man's house. She was used as a domestic servant and also as a sexual servant for him and his friends. She got pregnant, she said, quite young, and she never laid eyes on the baby. At birth, the baby was taken from her, and she doesn't know to this day whatever happened to him. She knew it was a boy. She assumes that the baby was sold, but she doesn't really know. And then she goes on to say that later, some years later, she was asked to do something sexual that she said, of all the things that she had to do daily just to survive, she said she just couldn't do this one. She used the word disgusting. She said, I just said I cannot do it. I could tell you what it was, but it's not worth repeating. So the owner, or her master, you could say, in the home, was pushing her and pushed. She ended up being pushed over a balcony down to the ground. And she showed me, she lifted up her trousers and showed me these deep, deep wound, how to say, deep purple gouges in her, all up her leg, and she said they were all up her back, and she was in the hospital for quite a long time, and people wouldn't believe that this had happened, that this person had done this to her, because he was a politician and he was very well respected and influential, and of course she wasn't. So she managed to escape, and she escaped with an African man. They're now married, living in Athens, raising their families. And she said two things that have always stayed with me, and that's why I tell her story. She said, "My daughters will never go through what I've gone through." And so many of our women say that. I say to them, your lives are hard here. They're marginalized in the society. They're struggling to integrate. But I say, what are the good things? And so many of the women will say, safety. They say we're safe here, and our children will be safe, and they won't have to experience so much of what we experienced. And the other thing that Agnes said is, she said, if I could go back now and talk to this man, she said, I'm not the person I was, I'm not the young girl that I used to be. She said, I would tell him now, I would stand up to him and I would tell him that what he did to me and what he's doing to others is wrong. She doesn't go back because she fears for her life and other reasons, but she said it in a strong way that really shows that how much she had come into herself as a person, and that's a very, very large part of what our work is. I will talk about that a bit more later. Okay, this is Mariam. Also not her picture, of course. Mariam was the first woman that I spoke to. And by the way, I am not one of the direct caregivers, we call them. The women, we have midwives, the women who directly deal with the women. I do know many of them, but I'm the organizer, the coordinator. I'm in administration much more. But of the women I know, Mariam was the first one who said to me that when she was pregnant, she had no idea how the baby was going to come out of her body. And there was no one she could ask. It's so shameful, sinful to talk about things like reproductive health. To even say the words of the body, the physical body that relates to reproductive health, is simply taboo. Women don't talk about it with each other the way that we do. She couldn't ask the doctor. It's too embarrassing to ask the doctor if she even had prenatal care. A lot of women in the villages in Afghanistan and Syria never have prenatal care. So there was no one to ask, so she didn't know how the baby was going to come out of her body. And for any pregnant woman, the anxieties, the concerns that you may have were just greatly, greatly compounded by this very basic knowledge that she didn't have. And even when she was giving birth, she didn't know how the baby was going to come out until it happened. And this was a real eye-opener for me, because we know that there are women in the world who have so fewer opportunities than any of us. But really, when you see it, when you talk to them, and you see the reality of the ignorance that they are forcibly kept in, then it's very shocking. It's really shocking to see. And this was one of the reasons we started some of the educational programs that we've started that I will talk about again in a bit. Okay, so this was Layla. Layla symbolizes two different aspects of the Arabic women. She's from Syria. She actually looks a lot like this young girl who's here. Layla was in her early 20s. She had 2 or 3 children already, and she was in a group discussion saying she didn't want to have any more, but her husband wanted 7 or 8 children. And what was she going to do? So some of the other mothers started to say, well, you could let him take a second wife or a third wife, and he will take care of you all your life, but you don't have to have more children. And then this turned into a huge discussion about the pros and cons of that, and some women thought it was a good idea, and others said, oh, no, no, don't do it, it's not good. And my husband has a second wife, or I'm a second wife, and he doesn't pay attention to us equally, and et cetera, et cetera. So then Layla, at the end, she said, I don't want him to take a second wife. And of course, being in Europe, they have a greater chance that he wouldn't, but it just means he would not have a legal second marriage, but he could still have a second wife, so to speak. And she said, and I'm going to tell him, when it comes up, I'm going to tell him that I don't want him to do it. And she said, I will tell him in any way that I need to. I'll scream or talk loudly, or I will cry, or I will do anything that I need to convince him to please don't do that. And then she stopped and she said, but if I was in Syria, I would never say a word to him. If he wanted to take a second wife, it's his choice. And in the end, all the women in the group agreed that if he wanted to do it, there was no way to stop him. It was still his right and his choice. But the way she said it, this young girl, she said, I will tell him, and I would never have said that in Syria. And when she said that, another woman stood up, Syrian woman, and she stood up to make a point emphatically that she said, I tell my husband now what I'm thinking. I give my opinion on things, and I never would have done that in Syria. And she said after that, and he's starting to listen in ways that he never would have done in Syria. So a large part of what we're doing is helping these women to really find their sense of self, their voice, an identity, even beyond motherhood. And Layla really symbolized that. The other thing that Layla symbolized is the women who come to us who are almost all in situations of domestic violence. Almost all. It's so normalized that it isn't something that they would even think to talk about or bring up as a discussion. One woman said, finally, it came up last year. Last year, some women started to talk about it, but it generally doesn't. But one woman did come forward and ask for help. And we took her to different of the other NGOs or the municipal agencies that deal with these situations and found her a shelter with the children, and she moved out. And she said that he found her, and she would not let him abuse her the way he used to. And then we lost track of her. And I heard just a few weeks ago that she came very, very heavily pregnant. And she said, he came back and he kept breaking into my new place. And she said, I couldn't stop him. And he kept violently beating her and raping her. And so now she's pregnant again and dependent on him again. As hard as it is for women in our countries to break free from this cycle of domestic violence, it's just so much harder for these women because they're not in their cultures, they're not in their countries, they don't have support systems, they don't have families around, although generally the families are not supportive. They just say that this is a woman's role, this is her life. But Layla represents that to us also, that the women live in these situations that they have a very, very, very hard time coming out of. And this last one is about Glory. Glory is a woman from Nigeria. And hers is a different kind of story. She came to us as a mother of 4. She'd been in Greece a long time. She'd had all her 4 children in Greece. She took our peer-to-peer training, which I will talk about in a bit. She got very inspired by learning and studying. She already had a bachelor's degree, and she got so inspired that she applied for a master's program in the UK. And she got in and she moved her whole family to the UK. So the reason I put Glory's story here is because I don't want to represent all the women who come to us as being ignorant, as I said Mariam was, lacking knowledge, lacking opportunities. Many of our women, particularly from the cities, even Damascus, Kabul, they have professions, they have education. We had 3 Afghan women working with us for some period of time, and they all 3 were incredibly dynamic. One was a young midwife, and she had been teaching at the university in Kabul, and her husband had died in his 20s, and she was in her 20s, and she had no legal custody over her child. Only the husband or the father of the child and the father's family have legal rights. She had no legal rights at all. And the father's family or her husband's family was pressuring her to do a lot of different things with her daughter that she didn't want to do. So she left. The courage that it takes for these women to leave, they leave with smugglers. There's no legal route for them. They have to come illegally. Days, it's a very, very dangerous thing to do. There's a lot of violence against women, particularly on the way. She left. Another one of the women who worked with us for a while had converted to Christianity. She lived in Iran, and she was so shunned and excluded from even her she lost her job. She lost her friends, even her family. She said her mother would sometimes sneakily or secretly talk to her, but she couldn't do it openly. So this woman also had the courage. She somehow managed to get the passports of her children from her husband's office or something. Somehow she managed. She's really courageous. And she left and she came and she was here with her 2 sons. She worked with us. Another woman was a physical therapist. You know, the women who have education, that we have a wide spectrum of mothers who come. So I don't want to paint the picture of them all being very invisible or really second class. Yeah. So all of these women, Gloria and all those Afghan women, they're now all in Northern Europe. They tend to not stay in Greece. The next thing that I want to say to you is, what do we actually do? We have programs for refugee and migrant mothers and babies from pregnancy until 2 years after birth. So the women who come to us are either pregnant or have children up to 2 years. And after that, we sometimes have to ask the mothers to stop coming, even those who have been coming for years and they don't want to stop coming. But we have a waiting list, and we need to let the new mothers in. So the criteria is that they are in this phase of their life, pregnant or having children, up until 2 years. We see about 300 women a month. We give them prenatal. I will talk a little bit more about the services in a minute, but we have midwives. You can see here in this picture, we were donated that ultrasound machine by a Dutch doctor, and she's doing an exam on a pregnant woman. This woman down on the left is just typical of our African mothers. We have groups, different groups. This is an infant massage group. And this picture there on the bottom right is our staff. We've had 11 paid staff for the last several years. That isn't the case now. I'll explain that a little bit later. But we're all women except for 2 men, this young boy and his father. and they're the security guards at the door of our building. The residents in the building where we have our center, it's a day center, and the women come during the day. They don't shelter there. The residents of the building were just terrified. They were really angry at our landlord for renting to us because they said, these people are going to be in our building. These people, I say in quotation, these people, they will certainly be damaging the building. They'll be running through the building, going up on all the floors. They'll certainly break into our apartments. We won't be safe. And they were genuinely terrified. So we had this boy's father was the first security guard, and that made a huge difference. They feel safe. After a while, they started to understand that these people were just like us. They were not people to be necessarily afraid that they were going to be harmful. And even one of the women who was most angry at us, she came to me a few months later after we had started, and she said, I apologize. She said, actually, many of us in the building feel like we're happy that you're here because you're doing a service for these people who have so much less than we do. So it really changed their perspectives, which was a wonderful thing. And this boy and his father were very influential in doing that. Okay, so what do we do and how do we work? This is the main thrust of the work. So in 2015, we started in the camps. We had midwives and lactation consultants who gave antenatal, postnatal care. We helped the mothers with infant feeding, particularly breastfeeding. Breastfeeding in times of crisis or disaster is the most important aspect of infant care if mothers are already breastfeeding. And I'm diverging a minute to say this because many of us will be in relief situations at some point. And one thing that is greatly overlooked is the care of infants. And when a mother is breastfeeding, one of the most important things we can do is to encourage her to continue breastfeeding. It's not just for nutrition, it's for trauma protection. It's it has many, many reasons, and I can't get into them all now. But helping the mothers to continue to breastfeed is of utmost importance. We give also relief items. That's what we did in the camps. And then in 2016, after 1 year, the camp we were in closed, and we opened a day center in the migrant area of downtown Athens, and we continued doing the same thing we'd been doing in the camps. And then around 2017, we made a few major changes. And one was that in the beginning, the fathers used to come up for the examinations with the mothers. But we found it very awkward. In the cultures, first of all, most of our African women are single mothers. Many of them come to us with pregnancies from rape. Many of them are living in the park. Not many, but some are living in the park or have no stable housing. The Middle Eastern mothers are usually with their husbands. Not all, but usually they are. So the husbands would come up, but it wasn't a thing. The men didn't, in their cultures, aren't involved in birth or pregnancy. Every doctor in the birthing hospitals, everyone who works there, every attendant, they're all female. So the males are just not a part of it the way they are in our countries. So it was awkward, and we realized that once we asked the fathers to stop coming, it created a safe space where the women felt much more relaxed, much easier to share things, to talk about things. And when I put here the title, How Do We Work? Mainly we work by creating safe spaces. Even our staff, many of our staff said they'd never worked in all women's situations before. And they find it more relaxing and easier to be with in certain ways. And so this is how we realize women become stronger, by being able to share with each other. So we made it an all-women safe space, and we started in 2017 peer-to-peer training. We understood long ago that we will never be able to give the proper services to the mothers, as well as they will be able to give to each other. The majority of the women who have come who came in this period did not stay in Greece. They never intended to stay in Greece. They always were heading for Northern European countries. So we trained several women in antenatal, postnatal, breastfeeding, and mother-baby yoga. That's our newest module. But they all left, or they needed some greater full-time job. So we did this training in order to empower them to become community resources. But it didn't really pick up in all those first years. Then 2020 and 2021 was COVID. That was kind of a space unto its own. And then after COVID, we started to expand the groups. Before COVID, we did birth preparation groups, helping them to know what to expect in a Greek hospital when they would give birth. We started to talk more about all aspects of infant nutrition and infant care. We talked about women's rights, reproductive health literacy, when we understood how little or how misinformed so many of the women's knowledge about reproductive health was. And those were extremely popular. The main focus since then in our program has really been the groups. After COVID, we expanded on those groups into parenting. That's when we started to have mothers talk about the gender-based violence that they were living under. And what we realized was that these groups, we were facilitating them, but the groups were really the mothers. They were more like self-help groups. The mothers were helping each other. The older mothers were mentoring the younger mothers. Many times they just wanted to keep coming. Even when they'd been through the groups before, they would repeat the same group topic, sometimes 2 or 3 times or more, because they made friends. They found community. They're so isolated in the community. In the recent years, any asylum seeker has to go to a camp, but for many years they were being sheltered in the city itself. And they were very separated, and they didn't have their family networks. They didn't have their women networks that they had in their original countries. So we say our motto is knowledge, community, and empowerment. And through these groups, they gained so much knowledge. They found friends that they stayed with outside of Amritel. They started to create a community or intensify their community. It's not that their community was necessarily created in Amritel for everyone, but for some it was. We started to talk about financial and digital literacy. Some of the mothers started to say, after COVID, we started to have more Egyptian mothers and African mothers who were planning to stay in Greece. So then they needed to, the African mothers especially being single mothers, they needed to work. So we talked about economic livelihood, integration, but those were really still more or less us giving to them. They would want to know about how they could start business. So we would refer them to other NGOs that give business training or vocational training. We would bring in, if they wanted to know something about healthcare, we would bring in doctors to talk to them about children's health. We partnered with the UNHCR for years on the integration program. So we would help the women to understand how to navigate the bureaucracy in Athens, how to get around Athens, period, how to use Google Maps, many things that they needed in order to survive. But what happened now in this year, in 2025, in the spring, early summer, is that the global financial insecurity or instability is affecting NGOs, and not just in Greece, but there's a major effect in Greece. Many of the funders are holding back, the organizational funders. in the beginning of the year, we received a message from one of our main funders who said, we're not sending you the money that we usually do at this time of year because we're not sure what's happening. And that threw us into a crisis. At that same time, 4 or 5 other of the small NGOs like us closed down for the same reasons. UNHCR cut back more than 50% of its programs for the same funding reasons, lack of funding, decreased funding. A big NGO, Medicine Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, they'd had a clinic in Athens and we collaborated with them very closely. Since 2016, they closed their clinic. So our staff was really panicking a bit. Are we going to survive? And we did major fundraising campaigns. I may have written to many of you. I don't know. I wrote to a lot of people. And we managed to get enough money to at least get us through the summer, when we knew that from September there would be a few more grants that we were hoping would come in. And in the process of that, crisis and opportunity, I call it, because it was a crisis. But as crisis usually does, it brings opportunity. And what we realized is something that we've realized for a long time, and that is that we wanted the program to be much more mother-led. We were doing things that we knew the mothers needed. We asked them all the time, what do you need? And the programs were designed around their needs. But still, it's us offering to them these programs. And we wanted to we still now. I had a target in 2017, and I said that by 2019 or 2020, we wanted the staff to be half the mothers themselves, and half have to be local people, midwives and lactation consultants and accountants and what have you. But we wanted at least half to be the mothers. And we didn't succeed in that at all. We really didn't succeed in the least, for different reasons. We had a lot of refugee mothers working with us at different times, but they all left. So we said, how do we get these to be more mother-led, the programs themselves? And this is where we're at now. We are in a time of big change, and we feel very positive that it's going to turn into more mother-led initiatives. But it's challenging getting it going. One of the aspects of mother-led projects would be economic livelihood. Another aspect is self-help groups, and another is community initiatives. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those. So economic livelihood. In the last years, we had mothers asking us for sewing machines. We got donations of sewing machines. One mother started sewing things and selling them to other women in her community. Another woman's made things with the sewing machine we gave her, and then she went to one of the NGOs who does vocational training, and she was able to get a job there teaching sewing, so there was some small success stories. There was another woman who started to embroider. She was embroidering designs on bags, and we tried to help sell them in some of the events that we had. And that gave her some courage. She started to do more embroidery, and then she started to expand into buying other clothing items or other household items that she might find around. She was Egyptian, so she started to somehow be able to get some things brought to her from Egypt. And she started this business, partially online, partially in person with the mothers, other Egyptian women in her community. And her business has grown so much that she has now hired, this is informal, but she is working with 4 other women who come from Amrtel. She met them at our center, and she's employed them, and they're working together. So there's 5 of them who have started such a business. So we're in a phase now where we're trying to see, what do the mothers have to offer each other? This mother knows embroidery, another mother knows crocheting. We work with a women's group who has supported us for some years in different ways, and some of their mothers know how to quilt. They have offered to teach our mothers how to make handmade quilts. Another mother knows how to do this kind of painting on plates or on vases, or such as this picture. So we're hoping that they will be able to teach each other skills that then we can help them to be able to organize into real economic sustainability. We have the idea of cooperatives, of course. Cooperatives exist in Greece. Not a huge number, but they are here. We met a fellow in Denmark at the Prout Convention this summer. He was from Portugal. He was a specialist in helping people start cooperatives in Portugal. He gave us a contact in Greece, and we've spoken to her. She's willing to guide us through how to start cooperatives with the mothers. Many of our mothers are not legal. They don't have documents, so they can't do any kind of legal registration. Most of our mothers don't speak Greek, as I said before, or English. Many of them are trying to learn Greek. They're studying it. But the obstacles are there. They don't know the culture exactly, how to navigate through. So cooperatives we have as a long-term goal. And I had said to Tarika when she asked me to do this presentation, I said, maybe I should wait and do this next year sometime, because maybe some of these initiatives that we're in the process of really trying to get off the ground now, maybe by next year, they will be something more formed that I can actually tangibly talk about. Now they are in preliminary stages, but we feel pretty positive that something is going to come from this. Our African mothers mostly all need to work. As I said, they're single mothers. The Arabic mothers mostly don't need to work exactly. Their husbands are bringing in money, but they're bringing in a small amount of money. They have children. They want to be able to do more with and for the children. So they want more income, and they're motivated. Our Egyptian mothers tend to be more aware socially than the Syrian and Afghan and other Middle Eastern mothers were. So let's see, maybe by next year we'll have something more concrete to say besides just these few examples of women who have been able to be successful in their small businesses. Self-help groups, I put this picture here because I couldn't put the pictures of the mothers. We have really great pictures of mothers in the groups themselves. But since, as I said before, this will be online, I couldn't put those there. But the main thing with the self-help groups is that we would like to, in the center itself, we would like to see the mothers leading the groups. And as I said earlier, mothers who were trained, either they were still reluctant to be in a leadership position, or they had to leave Greece, or they chose to leave Greece with their families, or they needed a more full-time job or things. Now, for the first time since September, in the last 2 months, we have one young woman, an Egyptian woman, who is leading the mother-baby yoga and mother yoga groups. And she's so dynamic. She's in her early 20s. She's one of the only ones. She and the woman who I just mentioned who started her own business, they're the two most dynamic women that we have of all the women coming. Dynamic, meaning having some sense of agency that that they're capable. This is a big thing that we have found, is that this sense that I can do something, I can start, they're recognizing their own capabilities and gaining confidence to be able to do something is huge for a great, great number of our women. So these two are acting as role models. She's started this group, she's leading it, we're still continuing to give her training. And we're hoping, there were 4 or 5 other mothers who were also completing that same training she did. And one of them is a little bit coming and taking some role, but the others are really not yet. We hope by sometime next year, when we give you updates on what we're doing, that there'll be a lot more peer-led groups. That's one thing. The other thing is, from the self-help groups, we have always hoped that the mothers would come up with initiatives that we would be able to support, that they didn't come from us. Now, with one of the peer trainings that we did last year sometime, the mothers finished, and several of them said yes, they were ready to do support groups for the mothers in Amrtel. They don't have anywhere else to do it, so we said, of course, please use our space. But they didn't have a concept of what it really was exactly. From the self-help groups, we would hope that the mothers, they talk a lot about their needs, about how to fill those needs. They help each other. Childcare is a very big need, particularly with the African women. So they have started, again, with women that they met in Amrtel. They've started doing some rotating child care so that the mothers can work. They give one mother a little bit of income, and the others go to work. And that came from discussions that's happened in Amrtel. How could they do it? How could they get over this need? So we're hoping that there will be more of that kind of initiative that comes. Access to health care is another one. You know, our mothers have learned a lot, and as they start to help other mothers in their community, they're becoming a little bit community resources. We're hoping that they will become known in the community as community resources. Some of the mothers who go to church or they go to the mosque, they say in those times when the women are gathered together, they will talk to them about if they have a baby or if they're pregnant, they will bring things. They will sometimes say, the other mothers ask us, how do you know so much about this? This is amazing. So as they gain in confidence, they gain in strength, we're hoping that they will come up with more initiatives that we are not offering them, that they will want to do, and we can support them in whatever ways we can, but that they are really theirs. Navigating the public school system is another big one. Their children are in schools, Greek schools. The mothers don't speak Greek, they speak Arabic. They can't communicate with the teachers. They talk a lot about how do we deal with the Arabic mothers. How do we deal with this free mixing, for example, between boys and girls? They don't know what to do. They don't know how to talk to their children about it. It just doesn't happen at all in their cultures. I tell this story sometimes of one of our Farsi employees. We were at her house one day. She had invited us for dinner, and I was in the hallway talking to her 19-year-old son. I was in my late 60s at the time. And he said to me in the middle of the conversation, he said, you know, Didi, if we were in Afghanistan, you and I would not be standing here talking like this freely. We just wouldn't. You're not a relative. You're not in our family. You and I, and it didn't matter that he was 19 and I was 68 or whatever it was. So this mixing of them in the schools, how do they discuss that? How do they talk about it to their children? How do they talk about the bullying that happens in the schools? How do they talk to them about the homelessness that they see on the streets? They don't have that in their cultures in the same way that it is here. So that's not the public school system, but the point is that the mothers mentor each other. It turns into groups where they just discuss these at length, and then a mother will come back the next week and say, well, I tried what you suggested. I talked to my daughter in the way that you suggested, and I think it was good, and how else can we do it? So these are very empowering. You know, all of these things are so empowering in the simplest little ways that from our countries, we don't have the sort of handicaps that they have. So we're hoping there'll be more of those community initiatives. Okay, now I'm nearly finished. I'm actually talking a long time. I want to wrap it up with Prout and neo-humanism. What we know from Prout and neo-humanism is that the empowerment of women is very important. Economic and social security and education, Baba has said that. Community-led solutions and provision of basic necessities. We also do a lot of distribution as much as we can, as much as we get the donations to do. Food, we gave until very recently with this crisis, we kind of cut down on the food. Staple food, we give them nappies, diapers, infant care items, because they don't have many ways to be able to get them. I put in women-led initiatives because it's a really important part, I feel, of this Proutistic approach to women's empowerment. These aspects that I wrote here are not from us. They are from studies of women-led initiatives. But we have found so many of these to be true, that there is an emotionally empathic sense amongst women, it's less task-oriented and more people-oriented. I always say that mothers, and I think also fathers, I just don't have as much experience with fathering as I have with mothers and mothering, but the resilience and the adaptability of mothers and motherhood is just extraordinary. Always there, 24 hours a day, year after year after year, all the small things that I always say it is really a main attribute, characteristic that women always say after they've become mothers. They are just able to adapt. They feel like they have strength and courage and know how to do it in so many different situations that they would never have been in before. Resilient, adaptable, inclusive. There tends to be more of a horizontal leadership in women's led initiatives, and we've seen that. We tend to discuss almost all of the major points. This is not only in women's situations, but it's strong in our situation particularly. We try to include all of the staff in the major decisions. We try to include the mothers in the major decisions or changes. Teamwork, morale, motivation, and empowering other women in the workplace. You see it. Our staff, they want everyone to succeed and do more and do better. And I just think that this is a large part of what women have to offer generally to society. Amartel Greece, this is the last ring. So what all of these factors have created is safe spaces for mothers, acceptance, validation. As Baba said, there should be no discrimination. They come, we don't ask their stories. Some of the stories that I told you, women have offered, but we don't ask them. We don't ask them to relive their trauma by telling us again and again, by telling so many people. They go to different agencies and NGOs and they're repeating their stories over and over. They are who they are, whether they're legal or illegal. They gain knowledge, they find community, and they get a huge increase in confidence and self-reliance. They find a voice. They find an identity beyond motherhood. And that's just amazing to watch. Wonderful and amazing to watch these women when that's happening. So then they become, some of them, peer supporters, whether they're trained in the peer support program or they're just doing it automatically in their communities. They come up with self-help groups. I'm sorry, there's a few typos here that I'm just noticing now. There's some economic empowerment, and we're hoping that will increase. Financial literacy, digital literacy, business literacy. We collaborated with Cornell University in the United States for an entrepreneurship online program of financial literacy and business. How do they start businesses? And we're making efforts to try to help them to gain these skills that they don't have. And women's co-ops, it would be very nice if next time I have that to tell you about. So that's the end of that about the presentation. I do, however, have one more slide that I've snuck in, even though it isn't about Prout per se, and it isn't about our project in Greece. It's about a book that I published last year. This book was, oh gosh, many, many years in the making, 10 years or so in the making. I had interviewed 80 mothers from 20 something different countries. Some were meditators, Margis, and some were not. And we put together a book which is mothers' words woven into the fabric of Tantra Yoga. It is published, it has been published by the Neo-Humanist College Press in Asheville. It's available in both paperback and ebook. It's for mothers who have already grown children, have read it and really liked it and enjoyed it. And it's for young mothers tend to not have time to sit and read, so I have to make an audio version for that. But for now, fathers have also read it. One father who's a grandfather, longtime Margi, he said he thinks all men should read it, especially if they're fathers. So I'm plugging it. I'm asking you to be aware that it exists so that you can spread the news of it, the word of it, to the Margis in your community. We don't talk a lot about parenting in Ananda Marga. And I'm hoping that this will be an opening to that, to talking about it more. It's available on these different sites, the Ananda Marga sites, as well as Amazon and Lulu. So please keep in mind that this book exists, and if you can help to spread the word of it, that would be great. And that is the last slide.
Bravo, Didi. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
That's that for that.
I got on this call at 6 a.m. my time, and you never failed to inspire me into feeling awake and alive, Didi.
Well, I told you it would be okay if you went to sleep. You've heard me present this at least
No, I
twice
was
already in the
I was
past.
there the whole time. It was fabulous. I have questions and comments, but I wanna open it up for others to come off of or come on your camera if you'd like to and just share any impressions or any questions you have for Didi about this incredible work she's doing. Alfonso, please. Oh, he's getting his headphones situated. Okay.
Sí, yes. I think I should be now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. All right, Didi. Wow. You laugh. So beautiful. Ah, thank you very much. I have something to say, and I have a question at the end. So bear with me, please. I'll try to. Wrote it down so I don't deviate because I tend to do that like a monkey on the trees. I take a lot of branches. This is from the beginning. It's an uncomfortable. I'll try to become. This is an uncomfortable matter, but urgent to be talked about and looked at and worked on. Now, I get angry because I don't care. I will not soothe this down with a spiritual bypass that I have fallen into before, and just like this, I could fastly go back to that mindset. I will not do that. This objectivization, this thing that comes from different ways, but I am studying about political revolution with the sexual revolution that occurred in France, and that's a topic for another thing. But it was the weaponization and making passions tools of control, and this sickening thing about pornography and masculinity, the stupidity of our, I'm talking to men now, the stupidity of our arrogance, not to self prostrate. And it's of not to be false allies, like there are allies there that are, oh yes, I'm an ally too. No. It's dangerous. That self-righteousness of men who think that know, but we don't know. No, nothing. Humbleness and willingness to listen to and learn. We don't have anything, any single thing to teach women. It's just the other way around. So let's just stop, man, and shut up and just support and be there and work in the baby souls that we have, because we are full-grown bodies, but our souls are in like a childhood stage, trapped in a full-grown body. So let's assume that, be part of a support system, and do shut up. Just shut up, man. We're all hurt. Let's see what they need in the present now to feel safe, and so then they can work in their own souls. I think that's the thing. I cannot travel to Congo or all those places. I wish I could. But I see souls here in Merida and Mexico around me, and I can at least try to put myself in the disposition to serve. Arpan is my Baba's given name, and that is service to Paramapurusha. I'm a psychologist, but I wouldn't, and this is the part of where I am going to see how I can help. I did want to say that because I know that this will be recorded, and sometimes Taraka maybe can remind me of, you're going back to that, so listen to yourself, please, man, okay? So I'm a psychologist, but I think that that work, it's difficult to do in a virtual setting, and I think that probably I do think I could work as an English teacher. Maybe I can help like that. We will figure it out, because I know that they actually Guinea Equatorial, the Equatorial Guinea is a Spanish-speaking African country. So maybe there is somebody from there. We have that in common, and I can teach those women English, those kids English. And if not, we will work it out, because we can work with different images. So I can teach English, because it's a language that has helped me get opportunities. So I think that that's something that I could actually do on weekends. I could work at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whichever time you need me, I'm there. I'm there. So I'm trying to learn Portuguese, Italian, and Russian now, but I think that's a far stretch for now. So online. I know money is urgent, but sometimes I have two cats. It's difficult. But sometimes that is not. But no money, it's no excuse. So my offer, Didi, is that if ever Taraka has my number, and anybody can have my number, when for whatever you need me, guys, I'm here. I'll be glad to serve. Okay, I need to go from the anger to the action. That is it. If not, it becomes violent and it kills. Okay, so my action and my offer is, can I help like that? Is it possible for me? Does it work for you guys? And namaskar, Didi. You are precious. God bless your heart, okay, and your service. The thing that you're doing, it's una chulada. I don't know how to say that in English, but it's like beautiful, okay? Beautiful. Thank you, Didi. And that's it. I'll shut up.
Thank you. Well, that was very powerful and very heartfelt. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind. We are all women. We have tried in the past to have sessions with the men on the days that we are closed, and we had invited the fathers to come. We were collaborating at that time with this NGO called Medicine Sans Frontier, and they trained health promoters so that the health promoters could do group sessions directly in the native language. And we invited many Afghan fathers at that time, and the health promoter came 3, 4, 5, I think 4 times, and none of the fathers came. And so in the end, that didn't work, and we have talked about it at different times, and it just hasn't come about. But we would like to be able to do more with the fathers. The mothers then have an uphill battle when they get new ideas. You know, one mother came from Iraq. She said to me, women's rights, we talked about in the other day in that session, women, she said that's something that would never, ever have entered our minds in their whole lives. And now what does that mean? And so they start talking to their husbands about, or family planning. You know, a lot of our mothers have, a lot of the cultural norm is to have many, many children and very close together. So we would try to talk to them, and obviously just about relationships. One mother said, after she had talked to one of our staff about her situation, she said, you know, it's so normalized that my husband and other men in our culture, he can hit me, he can abuse me, beat me, speak badly to me at any time, in front of the children, in front of others in the family, maybe not in the street, but but in the street at least, speaking badly. But she said, the men, they never say nice things or sweet things or kind things. It's just, now that was her perspective. We know some the Afghan men who are wonderful people, you know, so obviously that's a generalization. But if we could do something with fathers, I would certainly keep you in mind. Thank you for the offer.
And I need your book. I need your book like yesterday, please. I get in touch with Taraka and I will get that audio because I also ride the bicycle and I listen to audiobooks in a bicycle.
Yes, it's not in audio yet. I need to make it in audio. And I also need it translated into Spanish, if you know anyone who would like to. We use deep L, it just needs correcting, you know.
No, give it to me. Give it to me. I'll work on it. What pays my rent is I'm an interpreter. I take phone calls in between a Hispanic and an English speaker who are in the US, hospitals and things like that. So I am translating, interpreting. So bring it on. I'll read it and then I'll read it too. So yes.
Okay, nice. Thank you. Are you a father?
No, but potencialmente, like, how do you say that? Like, I will be some point.
Yes.
All right.
That's right.
I need that. I need to
Yes.
learn more things and beautiful things like that from that neo-humanism point of view.
It's actually a good time to read it before parenthood. Yeah, actually. It's been translated into Italian and it's being translated into Russian. But the translators are also people who publish. So I'm just giving it over to them. They're going to send me a small amount from whatever the sales are, but basically they're taking it over. So I would need to find Spanish way of publishing it. But anyway, we can talk about that another time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskar, Didi. Where is this book available for the English version?
It's available at anandamargabooks.com. It's available on Amazon. But several of the Ananda Marga book sites, like Ananda Marga Books, Neo-Humanist Education Publications, the Ananda Marga Goodreads, they all list it, but they're listing the Amazon, they're listing it being sold on Amazon. There's also another book publisher and seller called Lulu, and that is in an attempt to get away from Amazon, to tell you the truth.
Great.
So it's not as well known. It's also out of Asheville, interestingly, the headquarters. But
L-U-L-U?
L-U-L-U. L-U-L-U, Lulu. Yeah.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, I share the same sentiments. Great presentation, by the way, Didi.
Thank you, Rakesh.
Love your spirit of self-service. You exemplify Baba's what he told us to do for service to humanity and the whole universe. So I give my deep namaskar and thankful for being such a good inspiration. With that, I have a question, Didi.
Okay.
So living in the Americas, as you have noted, in the beginning of the year, we saw pretty much all the aid given to projects like what you do from whatever they were to zero.
Yeah.
And then sadly, the European countries followed,
Yeah.
and so what impact have you seen just not on your project, but worldwide. It would be humbling to know.
There have been big cuts. There have been many, as I said earlier, smaller NGOs that have closed. There's a fair amount of news in the media, articles in European media about the funding cuts to humanitarian aid agencies that are happening throughout Europe, throughout the world, I guess, as you're talking about. The Greek government doesn't have a very strong support system for NGO work with refugees. There is some, but it's not particularly strong. And so it's really a matter of finding loyal and wonderful supporters, donors. It's a lot harder to navigate just in the last months, this year, than it has been. And it's always, this kind of project has no self-sufficient income. So it's always dependent on outside sources. But now that has become harder. In fact, one thing I was going to say on one of the first slides when I mentioned our staff, we have had to cut down on expenses. We've had to let staff go. We had 11 paid staff for years, so many years now. And now we have about 6, and someone else is leaving at the end of the year. Our staff, several staff left because we asked them to cut down their hours, and they couldn't. And so they asked to be fired, actually. It's affecting everyone. There's a very strong network of small to intermediate-sized NGOs in Athens. We're linked online, we help each other, we communicate as much as possible. And almost everyone is in a similar position. So where the resources are going to continue to come from, I don't know. I just now listed in the chat our website. On our website, there's of course a donation page so that anyone can donate there. Recurring donations we really love to get, even if it's a small amount, People give us sometimes 20, 25 euros a month, but at least it's coming in every month or something. So any help, or we do campaigns. We can put you on our mailing list and you get the newsletters which talk about our work, and also we do once or twice annual campaigns for fundraising. And that's a large part of our income source now, is that kind of fundraising. But it's not enough. We still need bigger grants. It's just become trickier.
Are there any other questions or comments for Didi?
Namaskar, Didi.
Namaskar, dear. It's so nice to see you.
So
It's
nice
nice
to
to
see
see everyone. You just happen to be one of the small handful of Margies that I know from before I went to training.
Yeah.
And so that's where you have that. I feel that when I saw you, how nice that he's here.
Likewise. And such wonderful work you're doing. So inspiring. I cried a few times, what this is happening. I will support as much as I can. I think probably through Amar, but I'm retired now also, so. But thank you, Didi, so much.
Thank you, Janesh. Thank you for everything. And you have supported us in the past, and your family has supported us. Yeah. And without even knowing. And this is an amazing phenomenon. When people support us who have never been here, they don't know Greece, they don't know the work, they've never seen it, and yet they continue to send money every month or every campaign or whatever it is. It sounds very trite to say, but it really touches my heart. I think these people have so much trust in us. so much trust and faith in what we're doing, even though they haven't seen it and they don't know, and they support it. And it's a very major factor. There have been times in these 10 years, now we just completed 10 years, there have been times when I've thought, okay, well, now we've done everything, I guess, that we were meant to do, and maybe it's time to close up. And then someone will, out of the blue, sends some donation, and I read the name of this Margie or this person, and I say, "Oh, we can't close. Look, these people are counting on us," and not to mention the mothers counting on us, of course. So it's very, very significant. I never had a project before that didn't have some self-sufficient income. So this, for me, is a first that's totally dependent on outside sources, and it's just huge when those outside sources and people that you know or don't know help with the donation. So
Well,
thank you
it's
very much.
great work, empowering. It's the future too.
Yeah.
We're learning. I learned so much from you, and I am a grandfather now, so I'm also getting your book.
Oh, how nice. Happy grandfathering. We'll have to have a chat one day and share some of the things that have happened in the last 45 years or
All
so.
right, all right.
Well, I guess I've seen you sometimes more recently than 45 years, but not
Right.
often.
Yeah.
Well, Didi, I think that this point about sometimes getting donations that from people who don't necessarily know the work or see it in person speaks to the element that you brought up in the presentation of women working together being such a powerful thing, and it's like just trusting that having those women-led spaces lead to amazing results for the women, and hopefully I would love for us to have you back next year to hear about the progress with this like cooperative economic self-sufficiency kind of work that's growing. I think that's amazing. And I also got emotional listening to some of the stories of these women. And I think what struck me the most, I'm working with I'm working as a therapist at a homeless shelter right now, and there are a lot of women who have experienced domestic violence and horrendous trauma, but there isn't the same there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of confusing messages for women in the West, I think, that aren't exactly the same. So a sense of camaraderie among women is missing in the way that I see it portrayed in the work that you're doing, or how you describe the kind of ease with which women fall into helping each other and supporting each other. And so I think it's just so inspiring to see that to hear about that, and that you're supporting more of the kind of self-led stuff. I think that's incredible. And I wanted to respond a bit to Alfonso also about this. I was really touched by everything that you shared, and um, the desire to act. And from my stand, or how I see this issue, is that we need more men like you doing work with other men to kind of, because I the impulse to want to support women's work is a beautiful one, and like side by side with the women need to be able to do the work on their own, and we can trust them to do it on their own. But and there's so much trauma in men because of the patriarchy to be unlearned, and men's spaces, I think, are something that is underdeveloped right now. And so I think just planting a seed from one more perspective, that's another way to channel your energy, or could be. from anyone here who has their camera off, any other comments or questions before we close? We've got just a few minutes. I did put a feedback form in the chat for any feedback you all have on the on this presentation. But I want to just open the space a bit more.
I'm also going to just write in the chat my email address,
Great.
also in case anyone wants to
Thank you.
contact me directly.
Namaskar, Didi. This is Kalyani.
Namaskar, Kalyani, dear Kalyani.
Yeah, yeah. Your presentation, your sharing was really wonderful and touching. And I'm going to try. I will make a donation for your project.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you so much.
So I will look in your website. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
So you have like PayPal or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have, yes, there's PayPal, there's donation by credit card or debit card.
Okay.
Yeah, those are about the two ways at the moment.
Okay, I think maybe PayPal would be like least, the charges will be less because,
Could be.
when you use a credit card, I found out that the bank on the other side, not on my side, takes a lot. Yeah, in some places, I don't know that. So maybe I think PayPal is better. Anyway, I'll send you something.
Okay.
And hope to see you again, maybe even
Yes.
in Athens. Yeah.
Again, and I
Okay.
just saw you this summer. I hope next time when you come to
Yeah.
Greece, I'll be here. That's what I hope.
Yes, that's right.
She
Okay.
came and I couldn't help her
Okay.
with anything. I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Thank
Namaskar.
you. And thank you for your work, Kalyani, which has been tireless
Yeah.
for decades and continuing to go on. So thank you for everything.
Namaskar.
Well, Didi, we're all so honored to have you here sharing this with us, and I'm so happy for you to feel this kind of Prout element emerging stronger and stronger, and you taking it seriously. I think it deserves that because it really is. It's not only relief work you're doing here, empowering important people to be able to implement a new world.
Yes. You were one of the main people who encouraged me to do this or to give the presentation to Prout, to
Wow,
kind of
it's
help me
really
switch my
inspiring work.
thinking.
Yeah, good.
So thank you
So
for that.
let's close now, and the recording will be available on our Proudest Universal YouTube channel. Please fill out the feedback form in the chat if you can, and we'll see you all at the next Proud Space. Thank you so much, Didi.
Thank you all so much.
Didi, namaskar. I'm
Namaskar.
Ranjita.
I know, Ranjita, this must be at least the third or fourth time you've heard me present. Ranjita
How
is
are
a
you?
regular donor. She donates
Yes.
every month to our projects.
Well, little, but I thought it's fine. Thank you so much.
So nice to see you. Thank you so much.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, namaskar.
Namaskar.